This is the story of how millions of Africans were taken from their homeland, stripped of their identity, and yet, built one of the most influential cultures in American history. This is Roots of a Nation, the origin of Black Americans. Africa before slavery, sounds of bustling marketplaces, laughter, and drums. Long before the word slave echoed through the Americas, Africa thrived with kingdoms that rivaled Europe's might. From the Mali Empire, where Mansa Musa, the richest man in world history, ruled with gold and wisdom, to the Kingdom of Benin, famous for its bronzes and advanced urban planning. From the Ashanti in West Africa to the Congo in Central Africa, trade, art, and scholarship flourished. Africans were blacksmiths, farmers, scholars, soldiers, and poets. They worshipped ancestors, celebrated harvests, and lived within rich social systems. But as European explorers reached the shores of Africa in the 15th century, curiosity soon turned into conquest. The transatlantic slave trade, dark, ominous music fades in. Waves and chains clinking. It began with trade, gold, ivory, spices, but soon, human lives became the most valuable export. From the 1500s to the 1800s, more than 12 million Africans were captured, sold, and shipped across the Atlantic Ocean. The journey was known as the Middle Passage, a brutal voyage where men, women, and children were packed into ships like cargo. Disease, hunger, and despair claimed countless lives before they even reached the Americas. Those who survived landed in strange lands, Brazil, the Caribbean, and the English colonies that would one day become the United States. Here, their names, languages, and cultures were stripped away. But what could not be erased was their spirit. Slavery in America in the 1600s, the first Africans arrived in Jamestown, Virginia. What began as indentured servitude quickly transformed into chattel slavery, where Africans were seen not as people, but as property. By the 1700s, slavery was the backbone of America's economy. Cotton, sugar, and tobacco plantations in the South made fortunes for white landowners, all built by enslaved black hands. Families were torn apart. Women endured violence and exploitation. And yet, through music, religion, and resilience, enslaved Africans preserved fragments of their African identity. They created spirituals, songs that told stories of pain and hope. They spoke in coded language to resist, to escape, to survive. From these roots grew the very soul of Black America. Freedom and Reconstruction, sound of church bells and marching soldiers. In 1863, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring the freedom of enslaved people in Confederate states. 2 years later, the 13th Amendment officially ended slavery across the United States. But freedom did not mean equality. The Reconstruction era promised land, education, and rights, but it was met with violent resistance. The rise of the Ku Klux Klan, black codes, and segregation sought to re-enslave African Americans through fear and law. Still, Black Americans built schools, businesses, and churches. They became teachers, inventors, and leaders, proving that freedom was only the beginning of their story. The Great Migration and cultural rebirth, jazz and train whistles fade in. Between 1916 and 1970, millions of Black Americans left the South in search of opportunity, a movement known as the Great Migration. They moved to cities like Chicago, Detroit, and New York, transforming the culture of America forever. In Harlem, a cultural explosion called the Harlem Renaissance gave rise to poets like Langston Hughes, musicians like Duke Ellington, and voices that redefined what it meant to be black and free. Black Americans turned pain into poetry, rhythm into resistance, and struggle into art. From gospel to jazz, from blues to hip-hop, the heartbeat of Africa continued to echo through every note. The civil rights movement, the 1950s and 60s, marked a new chapter, a fight not for freedom, but for justice. From Rosa Parks' stand on a Montgomery bus, to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, to Malcolm X's call for power and dignity, Black Americans demanded equality, dignity, and a rightful place in the nation they built. Their courage changed laws, hearts, and history. Legacy and identity. Today, Black Americans are writers, scientists, presidents, athletes, and visionaries. Their story, born from suffering, became a symphony of strength. From Africa's ancient kingdoms to modern America's cities, the journey of Black Americans is one of survival, creation, and unbreakable identity. Because no matter how far they were taken, the roots still reach back to Africa. They were stolen from their homeland. But they built a new one, brick by brick, note by note, dream by dream. Title card: Roots of a Nation, The Origin of Black Americans.